everybody, how are you doing today? It's very nice to have you here. And today I wanted to speak a little bit about the different kinds of samadhi, or what samadhi really is, as we are approaching our 3-week intensive on emptiness and love and removing the obstacles to awakening. And I want to both clarify some things in that 3-week intensive regarding samadhi. There's so much information about this out there. Sometimes it may be a little confusing, and not just clarify it in a technical sense, but also in an experiential sense as well. So before I start speaking about this, let's take a little moment here, a little moment in just resting in our natural state. So that word samadhi, what does it really mean, samadhi? It means to abide in the unbroken awareness of our natural state, or in consciousness. So samadhi happens when the mind, quiet mind, merges in the heart. And when I say heart, I mean with a capital H. Or in other words, when the quiet mind is resting in our natural state or in consciousness. And when that happens, that can happen either with the awareness of the body still present. That often happens. I'm sure you experienced that before. That quietude, that real deep rest, and there's still the awareness of the body. Or it can happen without the awareness of the body. I'm sure some of you experienced that also. Samadhi, merging, resting in our true nature without the awareness of the body. And sometimes we can think, well, one is better than the other. However, it really is about the resting in the awareness of our true nature part. So it doesn't really matter ultimately if there is awareness of the body still present or not. However, when there is no awareness of the body anymore, then the experience of samadhi is more intense. It's experienced more intensely. And so even as we are speaking about this, we can simply come here, moment by moment and just rest in, because that which we are, our natural state, consciousness, is of course already here, and we can, moment by moment by moment, that's what samadhi is. We can rest in it. We can rest in it right now, right? So there are two main types of samadhi, and there are the names and the technical names, savikalpa and nirvikalpa samadhi. And what do they mean actually? What is meant by that? You know, there's one type of samadhi where effort is still required. So that means, yes, there is resting in our natural state, but we need to make an effort for that to happen, right? You know, I used to use a different analogy of a well and a bucket thrown in a well, and there's the type of samadhi where the bucket immerses itself in a well, in the truth of our true nature. And yet the rope is still here, so that rope is going to pull the bucket out at some point again. That's, you know, the bucket being the mind, right? So one type of samadhi where we still have to make an effort to rest in presence. And what it means when we make an effort is not wrong, it's just clarifying. You know, when we make an effort is the moment you stop making an effort. The mind is going to emerge again, right? You know, there's so many yogic practices that rely on effort, and the yogis used to be, so many that really practiced that discipline, were able to really spend a long time in samadhi, even to the point that there was no visible signs of life in the body. However, when that effort stops, you know, the mind emerges again. It's a samadhi based on an effort. And then there's this other type of samadhi, nirvikalpa, that really means there is no more effort. It's just natural resting here. And you know, the reason why we would need an effort still for resting here is because there are still the mental tendencies, right? The vasanas are still here. So when vasanas are still here, there are disturbances. And because of these disturbances, we have to make an effort. We have to say, well, let's come back here, right? But then when there's no more disturbance, we can just naturally rest here. You know, and a very interesting thing that Ramana keeps, you know, saying, you can read this in his writing, is that even if we practice samadhi, even if we spend a really long time or long times in samadhi, but if the vasanas are not finished yet, then regardless of spending really long time in samadhi, there is not going to be liberation. Very interesting, right? So often we speak about these tendencies that, you know, reside below our conscious level of awareness, right? Even if we spend a long time in silence, in resting, and if the tendencies are still here, there is not going to be that final liberation. So this is more the theory behind it, and we can forget about it for now. And I will be happy to share more information about this and go a little more in detail in our 3-week intensive. But the most important thing is to really, moment by moment, to keep realizing that our true nature is already here. and that we can keep just resting here. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in our 3-week intensive starting this Sunday. And please like, subscribe, and comment if you like these videos. Many of you have been, and I so appreciate that. It really helps us to be more visible and for more people to benefit from this.